I'm Gary Stearman filling in today for J.R. Church on the Prophecy in the News Update. Today I'm holding in my hands a dispatch from the International World Tribune, and the headline is, "Bibi, be gone. Obama team plotting overthrow of Israel's Netanyahu." Let me quote from the opening of this article. The administration of President Barack Obama has launched what officials term a psychological warfare campaign meant to topple Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Those are startling words, if true. Second paragraph says sources in the administration and Congress asserted that the White House and State Department have sought to destabilize Netanyahu's government by forcing him to agree to an indefinite freeze on Jewish construction in the West Bank and most of Jerusalem, as well as the establishment of a Palestinian state by 2012. They said the campaign sought to replace Netanyahu with opposition leader and former foreign minister Tzipi Livni. Now, she's the head of the Kadima party in Israel, and the Kadima party, of course, is left-wing. We have a quote here: "Bibi is extremely vulnerable to pressure." A source familiar with the White House effort says, "We know this from his first term in office and believe that he will collapse this time as well." The sources said the administration's strategy aimed to delegitimize Netanyahu in his government and right-wing constituency is well underway. They said that Obama and his aides have sought to portray Netanyahu as a weak and unstable politician who will destroy relations with Washington as Israel seeks U.S. support for a military option against Iran. Now, think about that for a minute. That changes the very nature of U.S. Middle East and particularly U.S.-Israel relations. On Prophecy in the News, in our magazine for many years, we've had a feature that we call Gog Watch. And under the heading of Gog Watch, we watch the leaders of first the Soviet Union and now Russia as they relate to the governments of the Middle East. And we know from Bible prophecy that at a certain point in time, Gog is going to be summoned against his will into that particular battle theater of operations. Ezekiel 38, "The word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech, Tubal, and prophesy against him." This prophecy against Gog is said to be the only place in the Old Testament where the name of a modern country appears in print. And Meshech, Tubal, Gog, Rosh, all of those identify the territory being spoken of and the particular political leadership as being that of Russia. And the interesting thing about this is that Gog is to be drawn into the Middle East against his will, as a beast is drawn with hooks in his jaws. So that when we look at today's Russia and the satellite states around Russia, and try to analyze Russian geopolitics in terms of what they might be doing, we must take into account the fact that what they're doing on purpose may be less important than what God is doing to them behind the scenes. They're going to get drawn in to something that they can't control. And right here, we'll say for the 1,000th time, that when they are drawn into the Middle East, their chief ally will be Persia. That's today's Iran. And that takes me to another interesting news story. The Iranians are behaving in an ever more provocative manner against the U.S. forces in the Middle East and the Persian Gulf. I have here a DEBCA file release from April 29th that says this: the U.S. Fifth Fleet, the U.S. aircraft carrier USS Eisenhower in the Gulf of Oman were not allowed to shoot at an Iranian Fokker F-27 aircraft, which on April 21st hovered, that is, orbited or circled, more than 20 minutes, 900 meters over the carrier and no more than 250 meters away, even though they saw its flight crew gathering intelligence on the Eisenhower and its warship escorts. When an aircraft carrier steams along it does so in the company of a flotilla of support vessels, including all kinds of offensive weaponry, guided missile cruisers, etc. Here, a Fairchild F-27, by the way, an F-27 is an airplane that has been used as a secondary service airliner in the United States. You'd recognize one if you saw it. Turboprop airliner on April 21st circled above the USS Eisenhower, and they say 900 meters. That's about 2,000 feet in altitude, and 250 meters away, that would be about 900 feet to 1,000 feet away from the USS Eisenhower. So that was a very close encounter for a long time. They don't say how long, but it was on an intelligence gathering mission. Obviously had electronic surveillance, photographic surveillance, and who knows what other kinds of gear were aboard to record the USS Eisenhower operations. You know, the Iranians have said for a long time that when the big battle comes, their first offense is going to go against our aircraft carriers in the Persian Gulf and in the Gulf of Oman. By the way, the headline here is U.S. Gulf units may not fire on Iranian ministry without White House say-so. That goes for a little F-27 taking pictures, and it goes as well for a major offensive, which we know from the Bible will come. Military sources reported that the U.S. Persian Gulf Command went public on this particular incident April 28th, a week after it actually happened, and only after Gulf military circles, amazed at the American naval and air units' passivity in the face of hostile surveillance, threatened to break the story to the local media. So this story was broken only after it became necessary. This is the state we find ourselves in with an executive branch that is courting Mahmoud Ahmadinejad and shunning Benjamin Netanyahu. Friends, we live in very, very threatening times. One more news item in the mix. We have Syria and Iran acting as a single unit. And we have here a quotation from our own Defense Secretary, Robert Gates. He said, April 28th, Hezbollah, and I'm quoting Robert Gates, Hezbollah has far more rockets and missiles than most governments in the world. Now, Hezbollah is being supported by the Syrians and by the Iranians. They have occupied the territory just north of Israel and have all but wired their offensive plans to the Israeli Defense Ministry. They're very open about their intentions to flood northern Israel on a particular day and take command of Israeli territory as far south as Haifa. Robert Gates, quote, Hezbollah has far more rockets and missiles than most governments in the world. He and Israeli Defense Minister Ehud Barak were talking to reporters after their talks at the Pentagon. Military sources did not see his high commendation for Barak's achievements as defense minister. All he had to contribute on this occasion was, and I quote, we do not intend to provoke any kind of major collision in Lebanon or with Syria, but are closely watching these developments. In the Persian Gulf, in Lebanon, in Iran, in Damascus, everything is tightening up. And so we would return to that favorite phrase of ours, Gog watch. We're watching. Are you? Just a word about JR going out here, and that is that JR is a bit under the weather today. He's undergoing chemotherapy, as you know. Pray for him. He's fighting the good fight, and he's going to be back next week, Lord willing, and keep those prayers coming in. I'm Gary Stearman, and this has been today's Prophecy in the News Update.